This is the month of January. It has been a month of fog, cold hikes, and the start of the new year. Welcome to Dinner Time, a cosy podcast to chat about books, culture, and art at the end of each month. I have my little frog attached to my microphone. Unfortunately, my wireless microphone doesn't work, so this is where we are. We are back to the wire microphone for now. Usually January is a cold month for us. Actually, since we moved to California, it's been a lot warmer. Currently, it feels like spring. There's a lot of spring activities happening. There's some frogs that are in their mating season across the road from us in the little lake area. They're called... What are they called? Let me Google them. Spring peepers. So we have a lot of spring peepers across the road from us, and you usually hear them around 5 p.m. ish, and they're just chatting away, loving life. Actually, I momentarily rescued one because it had injured its leg, and the plan was to keep him in a little container with tissue on the bottom, water, get some food so it could heal, because it looked like it was down to the muscle. Well, I got him all set up, we went out, we actually took the dogs to the vets, and when we came out, he had escaped the little container and he was just hopping across the floor. He'd got like hair stuck to him in the escape, and I was like, he wants to go outside, so he needed to go outside. Actually, I had Googled them before, and it said that they don't do well in captivity, and the fact that he had gotten out of this, he was actually in a kiwi container, he'd gotten out the tiniest, smallest hole in the side. I was like, look, he wants to go outside, and if he wants to go outside, he can go outside. So I popped him in this little frog dish that's outside with a little bit of water, and he stayed there for a couple of minutes and then already made his way, I presume, to the lake to join his fellow spring peepers. So he made his own, he discharged himself, he made his own health decisions. It's still cold at night, it's still quite cold at night. We sleep with a heated blanket and the heating on, but during the day it's quite warm. Like, we turn the heating off, I had the door open most of the day to let the dogs in and out whenever they want. So it's weird. I don't know. I don't mind it because I like the spring, but it is very, very strange to me. I've nearly finished a bonnet that I have been knitting. I made most of it in the car on the way to Utah. That's where we went and spent the week after Christmas. So I sort of made a lot of it on the car journey. A lot of my subjects are home-based at the moment. We've gone on a few hikes, town day trips. Where we are, there aren't a lot of things to do in the UK where we could go to the beach or the park. You have to drive somewhere. You can do things like go to Walmart, like go to the shops, but yeah. I enjoy the bookshops and I enjoy the craft shops. I rarely enjoy a food shop, so I've lost interest in going to Walmart and Costco and all the things that you do when you first go to America. Last year's goals were a lot of creative goals. I put in their own video, but they were largely based on being creative and writing. I think I achieved quite a good amount of what I wanted to focus on. In particular, I wasn't confident with knitting being a hobby that would stick. It's something that I don't do every week, but I've completed 2 things. So I made a baby bonnet for an old colleague of mine. I used this wool from a charity shop, which was like sort of like a light browny taupey colour, and it had blues and yellows and greens in it. And because I don't ever keep it simple, I mixed it with like a bright red mohair, and I think that lifted it up a bit and made it a bit more a bit more rosy and a bit brighter. And I liked that because I didn't want to go with a blue like for the baby boy. I wanted it something that was a bit more colourful and a bit like more happier for him. Especially because I think that blue is a very default colour to go to. So I didn't want to contribute to a possible overload of blue items. And the red was really nice. So practicing something smaller, but something that was also useful. I think that was a lot more engaging and captured my attention to the project. That was another reason I chose it as my first project, rather than a simpler thing like a scarf, because I knew that if it's something that's not useful, I tend to lose interest in it quite quickly. Likewise, that's why I take so long to choose a project, because I don't want to waste the yarn or pair it with the wrong colour and hate it. But I think that's something that I need to work on, because I have quite a good selection of yarn now that I need to put to work. I think that's the biggest hurdle for me, and that's also why I didn't do much sketchbook work this year, especially in comparison to when I was younger. I feel a lot of pressure for everything to be perfect. It needs to be so people can see my portfolio, so I can build a career and not just fail, in my eyes. So I procrastinate using my sketchbook because it needs to be absolutely perfect, and if I don't know what to draw, it will look ugly. However, the caveat of this is that if you don't draw, you don't practice. So, I think that a big reason for me feeling stuck in my abilities and all of this leads to a lot of frustration and avoidance, but that's something that I need to sort of work on. I recently did a challenge piece where I designed a dress for the Golden Globes, and that unlocked a bit of the rigid thinking. So I did a little bit of research, but not a lot. I didn't spend hours on Pinterest. I sketched the ugly initial ideas in like a lined notebook that I just got from the shop. A little cheap $1 one. And then I did a loose sketch and some colour for the drawing. It was definitely a lot better than sitting and thinking of all these ideas and not doing anything. I think that's why I've also been keen to do lino prints. I really love folk art, and that's been an interest of mine this winter, but lino cuts are also expected to be imperfect. Like, imperfectly imperfect in a way. You can get a lot of detail into them, but if there's like a misprint, it sort of adds to the effect. So that's something that I want to try a bit more. I think I have a lot of similar goals this year than I did last year, mostly based around creativity again, because whilst I do think that I did well last year, we're getting back into creating. I think 2025 was like a running start, and now is where I can really focus and get into bringing my goals to fruition. Like I said before, knitting, lino cut, working on my sketchbook are ones that I'm carrying over to this year. I started my Substack at the end of the year, so I want to do more articles. I actually had the idea of maybe one a month, but I struggle with having a lot of thoughts but not knowing what to write. So, or sometimes not even know how to write about them. So I think I'll use some of the activities I have from the Artist Way to get writing this year, and then some other ideas. So I rented the book from the library and I wrote down the activities from the book that I liked the most and the prompts that I liked the most. So I have those for reference, and I think I'll just maybe use those to sort of think of things if I can't think of anything. If I've not had any ideas from like reading other people's articles or reading books and stuff. I really like the article I wrote actually about stew, because it took on a weird, different form than I thought. I don't really know what I was expecting it to be, but I was talking about the history of stew and how it's sort of been present as a recipe and a dinner throughout my life, and sort of talked about the different ages in which I remember having stew and like what happened around the times of it. So I sort of explored like different elements of age and personal history through the form of stew. And it ended up being much more deeper. It was like a deeper, sentimental article than I thought it would be. So that was nice. Articles that explore deep topics like feelings and academic concepts are definitely how I envision my Substack evolving as the months pass. Working out how I explore this is something that I think I'll tackle this half of the year. One of the ways I started to do this was by looking at other Substack articles, and in particular how they discuss topics and what formats they use. Not just what they're saying, but also how they say it. One article I really enjoyed reading was Becoming a Woman is Realising That You Are Becoming Your Mother, which is by Ashleigh. This was an article where Anais explores how she sees her mother and how her mother appears in her own self. It was a beautiful article, and I think I really got attached to it because January's been quite homesickly. I do feel homesick in a way that I haven't felt before, obviously. I haven't lived abroad before. I've lived away from home, but I haven't lived abroad. I think the biggest difference is it's a big jump from a different city to not being able to go see like my mum and my granddad whenever I want. The spontaneity of visiting is gone because I'm so far away, and that's something that's become more prevalent as the months pass. I usually have to time my calls in the morning because people go to sleep by the time it's like 1 or 2. It's already nighttime for them, and you know, people are at work, so yeah. That's about as spontaneous as my calls can be now. So I guess 2026 can be named the year of the craft for me. I want to be crafty. I want to be creative and consume art culture. I want to start and catch up with my photo album curation. This is the most irritating project I've struggled with. So, basically, Jacob has had his phone for ages, and all of his photos are on there, and they date back to like 2017 onwards. Mine struggles with a year. So when I ran out of storage, I went to go get my old hard drive, put my images on there. I didn't want to erase them or put them on Instagram because they're private. Like, not everything I want on Instagram. I don't want to document everything. Some of them are just stupid photos as well. I hate not having photos of things. I really don't like it. I'm scared I'm going to forget like things, so I'm a bit obsessive with taking photos. So basically I got everything loaded up, ready. I got my old hard drive. I loaded everything onto there. It took ages. I think it actually took hours and hours. I got stuck in a loop of being harassed by Google Photos with pop-ups for subscriptions, and I had to fight to get my phone to recognise the computer. And in the end, I think I had to upload the images manually using Google Drive and Google Photos simultaneously because I couldn't upload all of the photos because Google Photos wouldn't let me because I'd reached the storage, so I had to like upload, delete. And eventually I got them all onto the hard drive, and that is where they are. I seriously miss the simple days when you can just plug your phone in and copy it onto the computer, and that's it. Without like a massive fight. No subscriptions. This is why I want to print them out as well, because I don't want to subscribe to save my photos. I just want the photos. Like, I don't want to pay for a subscription for a photo when you never used to have to do that. Which makes it sound really old, but you know. There's too many subscriptions for things that don't need subscriptions. But anyway, I did that. Jacob got a new laptop because the old one's charger wasn't working and stuff, and so he got his new laptop. Now this doesn't have a USB port. It literally is one of the Mac laptops that doesn't have the USB thing. So now I have the hard drive with all my old photos, but no way to open them because the charger to the original laptop is currently missing. I don't know where it's gone because we wouldn't have thrown away the charger without the laptop because it was still partially working. You basically have to hold it at an angle, but so who knows where that went. But now I'm stuck. I have the hard drive and nothing to read it. The reason that's an issue is because I want the photo album to start from our first date, which is the first photo we have together. Actually, it's because someone airdropped a meme to Jacob, I think. We were in the pub and we're like, should we just send a reaction photo back? So we did. We just sent a photo back. So, you know, here we are. That photo is now a good memory. But yeah, I want the photo album to be in order, so I'm stuck at the moment because I have some of 2025 partially printed out, but nothing before that. I didn't print. I only got into doing the free prints in 2025, so I don't have anything before that, and I need the old ones to put them in first before I do the next ones. So what started as a cute and fun idea has now turned into a palaver. There are some objects that I want to bring into 2026, however, we have a mix. Number one, I don't know why, but if you are watching this on a video, my hair is like a bit fuzzy. That is how it will stay, I guess. Number one of what I'm bringing into the new year, cats. I mean, I'm hoping we return to cats this year. If you've seen my other videos, / if you have seen my Instagram or TikTok, you'll know that me and Jacob started fostering cats last year. We rehomed 6 cats. Technically, one of them was a return to a existing home because he had been lost, and then he returned to his original home. But yeah, we rehomed 6 cats. I wrote a Substack about this in more detail, but anyway, I'm hoping that we move into our new place this year. I don't know when, but hopefully sometime soon. Hopefully we'll be able to move out into our own space, start fostering some cats again, because I love doing it. I like having the different cats in the house. I like caring for them. I like babying them. And it's really rewarding to have them recover and move into their new home. Like, to see them on their first day when they arrive to us, all the way up until the day that they leave, and to see that progress is like, it's so, I don't even know how to describe, like, it's so, like, in a way satisfying, because you know how much they, like, work that they put in subconsciously to, like, get to that point, and you know what they've been through, and, you know, it's just so lovely to help contribute to that. Daphne met some cats the other day. Daphne met some lovely little kitties that are our friend's cat after a trip to a state park, and she was insanely excited. She has lived with cats before, but it has been quite a while since she's been in the presence of a cat other than seeing them, like, on a walk. But yeah, she was like, oh my god. The cats were less excited. I was actually worried that she was going to bark at them and be on the defense, and then I was worried that they were going to be stressed because obviously it's their house. But she just wanted to play with them. She was like whining and she was like, oh, please. And they were like, oh, I don't know about this, hon. But yeah, I'm also very particular with my cat care. Probably stemming from our first flat share when we shared with an older gentleman that offered to feed my cat onions. And if you know cats, you'll know that they don't eat onions and it can kill them. Yep, he also offered to feed her salad and curry. Second thing is more of a vanity item. Some Denman brushes. So I got Denman brushes as a little Christmas gift. My mum and my granddad sent me some money for Christmas, and I decided I would give myself a little treat and get some Denman brushes. I got one that's like a soft bristle round brush for when my hair's dry, and one like toothy kind of brush for when it's wet, but it's a bit softer, so it's not like raking against my hair, because I find that the really thin plastic ones they just rip my hair out. I've got quite like fine hair and it just wasn't working, so I decided to have a little splurge. They were doing a buy one get one half off, so I did a little saving on it. And I got them because I like the look of them. I think they look visually quite classy and they're quite classic designs. And my mum has this brand too from when she was a hairdresser, I think, when she was training. And I just saw like someone had done like a flat lay with them, and I remembered them, and I kept looking at them and I was like, oh, I remember she used to have these, she used to like brush my hair with them and stuff. So I got them because I wanted to match her, and they're good quality brushes. So they are now my go-to brushes. And I find that they're actually a little bit, like, the handles are a little bit smaller, so it's easier to handle and style my hair than it was before. So I like that. The next thing that I want to bring into 2026 is gardening. We have gotten into gardening big time. Well, medium. Maybe big time when we get our own garden. So in August, we started to redo Jacob's mum's garden. She wanted it redone. She was just not happy because the grass was dead. She has some plants and she's doing a lot more with like succulents and stuff, but she was just like, I just want it to look nicer. It doesn't look nice, you know. I want to get rid of some things. So we started to help her with that. Jacob took over doing the grass. He's done like a stunning job with the grass. Like, oh my god. So we like tested the pH. We made sure we knew what pH it was to like work out what we were working with. Like if it was the soil that was the issue, or if it was like the grass seeds and how they've been sown before. And it was the grass seeds. The soil was like fine. It was just like it was like rock solid. So whilst I was like sorting out the plants and stuff, Jacob was on the grass area. Basically, he had to rake up the existing soil 2 times whilst having it like sprayed wet, so he could rake it up to like actually give some space and air for the roots to grow. It was so compact. It was literally like rock. And then he did a layer of new soil that had a bit more nutrients in, mixed that in. I think he put some fertilizer down as well, mixed that in, made it wet, left it for a couple of, like, I think maybe a day or 2 just to let it soak in. Did the seeds, started to water it every day, and the grass has grown back. There's some areas that it hasn't, and I think it's mostly the area underneath the hose where the water trickles down because it leaks. It washed away the seeds, so there's like a little bit of gaps there. And also the bit where everyone steps down from the deck is also not grown as well. And I think, again, it's because people step down into it. But yeah, I think once we start doing that again, I think he wants to put some more seeds down and like grow another layer essentially, to really fluff it up and get it nice. But we did really well. We've put some new bulbs in and the bulbs are blooming. We've been to a few different local gardening events where we did like work with making succulent decorations. So we've had the decorations out, then we've taken the decorations and put them into the garden as well, and they look great. So hopefully once the weather gets a little bit warmer, our new ones will start to grow so we can put some more flowers in. We have some seeds that we're growing at the moment, and there's some places in the garden that we want to work on next. Trinkets. This is one of the things I love. Outside of spending money on books, I like collecting things. I've always liked collecting things. Stickers, pins, figurines. I have a few trinket-orientated things that we do. Like, we have a lamp that we decorate with pins when we go on like a national park hike or a new city or a new country. Same with stickers. I get those when we go to like bookshops or like new places, and I decorate my bottles with them. For the viewers, this is my current bottle. I also have some keyrings on them. I got a new bottle because I did not like the straw on the Awala bottle. So I have a hydro flask now. Bag charms. I love them. I love bag charms. It's just nostalgic. Like, it's so nostalgic, and it's a fun hobby to collect them, and I like to collect things that like visually are nice and like to do with things that I like. And I think it's a nice way to see, like, when you see people with charms, to see what they're interested in and what like they like. I also love researching collecting as like a topic, as a research topic, so I'm very passionate about it, and I think my areas of interest have honed in quite a lot. Like, I have specific designs of figurines that I like the pop mart ones. I'm actually looking for a Kipling keyring at the moment because I used to have one as a kid. So I'm looking for a replica of the one I used to have. I don't buy to satiate a trend as such, although it did like sort of remind me when I start to see everyone wearing bag charms. It's like, oh my god, remember when I used to like love doing that? And then I guess got sucked into like the very minimalist, trying to be minimal and trying to be adult, and you know, I'm like, that's just not me. I like a cute item. I think it's a really interesting point to ask and find out why someone collects what they do. For me, I collect things that I always have liked, like bag charms and books. Like, I like them, I use them. I used to collect as a child. So, like, I had this like green box, and it had 4 compartments. One of them was rocks, one of them was soap. I don't remember what the other 2 were. I do remember there was like this like almost see-through-ish soap that had like the pattern of a fairy on it, and like some hotel soaps from hotels that someone gave me. Shells, again, used to live near the beach, so I have a load of shells. Stickers as well was another thing. I had like so many stickers just stuck on things. I stuck them on my bed frame, I stuck them on my TV. Number 5 is reading, obviously. It's something I always do. Sometimes I do it less, sometimes I do it more, but it's something that I always do. I think it's a fundamental skill, and I think it should be a fundamental hobby as well, but not everyone enjoys reading. And not everyone has the opportunity to enjoy reading, I will preface. So whilst I think it is fundamental, I do also know why people don't do it. I didn't read much as I have before in the last year or so. I worked in schools, then I moved abroad, so a lot of time was spent packing or in a school. I actually moved from working with older kids to younger kids, and I think that was a big jump, and it took up quite a lot of energy. So where I would be able to read at work and breaks and stuff, I wasn't able to. So I also have a lot of different hobbies, so like knitting, art. So it is not feasible to read 100 books in a year because I also have other things that I like to do. It's not my only hobby. If it's your only hobby, and sometimes it's people's only hobby and their job, so like they're powering through them books, but I can't do all these things at once. I'm doing a lot more reviews, verbal reviews and videos on there, and I've been really enjoying it as well. And I've also returned to doing ARC readings on NetGalley. So that's basically where you read books before they come out and do a little review to help them sort of like push the book and stuff. And I do love doing that as well. Do you know what my favourite thing is? Is when you review a book and then you see it in the bookshop and you're like, I read that before it was come out. I read that before it's physically available. It's only happened a few times to me. Sometimes I don't see them. Or sometimes the books are already published and you read them and you review them. Another thing is not drinking. I haven't drank in like a year and a half. I just stopped because Jacob stopped drinking, and I was like, okay. I was toying with the idea, and I don't drink. I didn't drink much anyway. Like, I'd have like one beer, maybe two. Rarely. I've never been a big drinker, and I was just like, do I even care? Do I? And I hate when you drink and it makes your mouth dry. I hate it. You know, I'll have a 0% beer. That's it. You know. So that's my goals, you know. They're my... That's my idea for this year of how I want it to go. In a very abstract sort of scenario. This month I read 3 books. I am taking part in a yearly challenge run by Ruby's Books. The prompt for January was to read a book from a genre that you usually don't read. So I picked horror as that's something that Jacob really got into this winter, and I've been curious. I've never been a horror movie person. I actually find it triggers my anxiety sometimes. For this I read The Har, which is a book set in Scotland and follows an elderly woman who is battling against investors who want to take over the village that she lives in and kick her and the remaining residents out. Within this, she's also dealing with the grief of losing her husband and being alone at home, and all these feelings and events morph into a monster that is essentially the star of the show, so to speak. There is a sea monster that arrives and propels each of the narratives, whilst also exploring themes of grief and capitalism. I really enjoyed the character development in this book, as the main character was so bold and punchy. I really enjoyed how she was unafraid of conflict with the monster or with the investors. But she was also, when she was home, you saw the less brash side of her, where she was exposed to how grief really affected her when she was alone and the house was empty. I also like the ways in which grief is explored, and how when it is present a lot of the time, the past can brim to the surface. And this is explored as a book plot point, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was the book that I started the year with, and that is House of Day, House of Night. This is a longer book, around 300 pages, 320 pages I think. I chose this book because we went to a Victorian Christmas market in Nevada City, and the bookshop had this old chihuahua behind the counter. He was so cute. He was underneath his blankets, exactly how Daphne was. And I was like, oh, your dog's very sweet. And the guy was like, oh, he's not feeling it today. I was like, valid little man. He was like, he had a little bit of a socialise this morning and he's done. I was like, that is Daphne to a T. She does a little bit and then she's like, I'm going under my covers. And actually he did the exact same thing where they scratch at the cover to try and pick it up, to get underneath, and then once they're underneath, they spin and they spin and they spin until they create this little nest to nest in. So cute. The reason why I got this book is because I loved the contrast of the purple and black on the cover. There's this lovely, almost lavender colour used for the title, and then the imagery is this lino print style, very abstract drawing of a dog, which links to one of the stories. And so I opened it to see what it was about, and it basically described it and then said it was a constellation novel. And up until this point, I've never heard of a constellation novel. So I flicked through, and it had a few different subtitles and stuff. And I saw that it had won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I spoke to the bookseller as well, and I was like, oh, this is why I picked this book up. And he said that he'd read Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead, which is another book written by this author. And he really enjoyed it. He said that Olga was a very talented writer. So I had a little Google search. And a constellation novel is basically a style of writing that's fragmented, sometimes reading like an essay, shorter pieces of writing that all link together to make a bigger picture. So in this sense, the book is set in a southwest Polish village, which was part of the German Reich until 1945. This is actually a disclaimer in the beginning, before you start to give you some context of the village and the stories as well. So the novel then unwinds into this like eclectic mix of different perspectives and characters. You have the main speaker, who's a younger woman, and she talks about her interactions with Marta, dreams, other daily events. Then you have another timeline of Kumineris, who is a saint, and Paschalis, who is a monk, who then transcribes the story of Kumineris later on. There's Marek, who has a troubled upbringing and actually who passes away, and it tells the story of him. Ergo Sam, who is a teacher, and it's all these different people who have lived in this village, and it's different snippets and stories of the village in different times, and it all pieces together to form this big, overarching sort of history of this village, which is inspired by real history. For this one, I did struggle. Around 200 pages in, I stalled a bit. I read like a good chunk whilst driving. Daphne is barking in her sleep, if you can hear it. I thought she was like hiccuping at first. I was like, oh, that's very weird. Partly to blame is me, because I read a lot of it whilst travelling when we were going on road trips and stuff, and then I came back home and then I read it in bits and bobs. So I lost my traction in a way. But I still enjoyed it, and I still stand by the fact that this is such a talented piece of writing, and it's so interesting in the way that it's been pieced together. And I have not, again, I haven't read a constellation novel before, so this is my first experience of that, and I really liked the format, and I think that there's a lot behind the activity and the characters as well, especially because Olga's a trained psychologist. There's a lot of knowledge behind representing the villagers and how they become the definers of the village itself. So the other book that I read is Calls May Be Recorded, which is a very opposing style. This is another short one, around 130 pages, and I read this to snap out of my reading funk, and it did get me to read more of Olga's book, and also to start a new one. So this one is about a call centre, and a call centre worker who was a bit unhappy with their life, and certainly a bit frustrated with their job, where they are policed on eating, sitting, and taking breaks. This is a fast-paced and raunchy book where the character has no filter, and what they say in response to their customers and their complaints is very, very funny, and especially fun to read as an ex-retail worker. It's a book that takes the imaginary aspect of wishing you could be brutally honest to a horrible customer and puts it with the pairing of an office not-so-romantic romance and friendship, as well as the romance. The first page was absolutely insane. I did a little TikTok explaining about that, and I read the first line, but I love how unrestrained the writer is, and she really made Jimmy a little bit weird, which made the story great, because we're all a little bit weird, you know? I think that if you enjoyed Green Dot or Luster, but also like a little bit of comedy and like a bit of like, what is going on, you'll like this book. I am toying with an idea of a reading list for February. Sometimes I think I get very overwhelmed with what to read next, especially when there's so many books to choose from and I find a new book. So I have some books in mind that I want to read, and perhaps I'll start there, but I'm not sure. Later on, I do also want to read non-fiction with a fiction, which is something that I saw on TikTok as well, where you pair your non-fiction book with your fiction so that it actually explores a topic that's explored in more detail, so you sort of have a deeper understanding and you're not just reading and then forgetting, you're actually learning. And I love that. So finally, we have media. We watched a few good series this month, and I've noticed there's a resurgence of Gothicism, which I love. One of the most notable Gothic films is, of course, Frankenstein, starring Mia Goth and Jacob Elordi. This was a very punchy retelling. It was well-paced and eccentric in its retelling of the classic tale. I enjoyed the costuming in particular. That aspect for me was very well considered and subtle, but also intentionally placed. The connection between Mia's character Elizabeth and the clothing choice was impeccable. I loved that the bright colours and the layered materials reflected her personality and love of creatures, and also the Victorian interest in like collecting bugs and stuff, which is intrinsic to her role as the maternal caring figure to the creature. And I think that the jewel tones as well really reflect her brazen attitude to Frankenstein. Like, she challenges him, and I think that sort of the way that she stands out in her jewel colours also reflects that. I think that Mia is such a good choice. She does horror and period pieces justice. She was great in Emma as well. I think that the fact that she plays two characters, both Elizabeth but also Frankenstein's mother, blink and you might miss it, because unfortunately Frankenstein's mother does die right at the beginning as well. And that becomes the catalyst that moves Frankenstein to his passion to beat death. And the red in the costuming for this character as well also foreshadows this desire to rewrite her death. And I think that was just, it was great. And I think Oscar Isaac was a great Frankenstein too, because I think he really channeled the boyish defiance and restlessness. In the film, Frankenstein is brash, constantly moving, and irritating at times. He's rude to people around him as a result of his mother's death and his drive to make some sense of it all. He becomes very one-track, single-minded purpose, and when people don't react the way that he wants, or people don't understand him, he gets quite agitated at times. Red is a colour that ties all these acts together, sort of in a way similar to the red string of fate that you might have heard before. In an interview, the costumer Kate Hawley talks about the inspirations of Louis Comfort Tiffany, the Age of Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, acting in contrast to nature's themes that run through the film and the script. There's definitely a brighter, more inclusive feel to this version of Frankenstein, with a lot more visual weight to it than before. And I think this is something that can go wrong with Gothic film or Gothicism in general, is the loss of colour. And I think this is usually an issue with film rather than books. Colour is an important way of conveying key unspoken themes in media, or bolstering the obvious ones in more subtle ways. There can be this tendency with film to go too much into the all-black aesthetic, and in doing so, a lot of the visual currency is lost. I'm thinking about Batman with Robert Pattinson. That is one of the films which reminds me of this sort of lack of colour and sometimes the issues that can come with it. I remember that me and Jacob went to go see it at the cinema and we couldn't see any of it. The visuals were like physically lost in the cinema. Like half the time it was just shadows and you could hear fine. You couldn't see anything though. In Del Toro's Frankenstein, the true Gothic colours are harmonised, and the colour is used as a storytelling tool that also creates a more intentional and moving piece. And I think also it's important to remember that colour can be Gothic. You can have a bit of blood red, a jewel tone, and also pair it with black or a little grey or the grungy backgrounds, and that can work just as well as just having no colour at all. The next thing that we watched was House of Guinness. And that also has a gothic element to it, but a less important factor to the story. So this was a fast-paced miniseries that was very entertaining. One thing I want to highlight is the contrast of the period setting with the modern Irish music. That is something that you've seen before in Bridgerton, with the classical music but modern song. The cutscenes of the Guinness origins alongside artists such as Kneecap and the Fontaines, in addition to traditional Irish music, really champions Irish culture and this story as a piece of Irish history, but also in doing so and pairing it with the modern music and the visuals has created a bit of art that really like makes it known that they are proud to be Irish and they are proud to be producing an Irish piece of art. The tension's gripping, but the characters aren't just solemn. There's times when they're silly, like when they're arguing. There's times when they're romantic with their lovers. I think the main cast did really well in balancing the seriousness of being this like rich family, but also showing that behind the scenes they're not always like that. They make mistakes, you know? There's times when they're arguing. One scene I really appreciated in this and felt was such a poignant and powerful scene was when Anne was travelling, and she was travelling through Clonboo when she suffers a miscarriage. The way that she portrayed female pain was so amazing, and I think that she should be recognised for that. Like, it was so amazing to watch. The way that she channeled female pain, and in specific, she portrayed a miscarriage, was so painfully accurate. Anne is silent. The camera replicates her slight vision change, the close-up to her face, and the pain sort of almost fearful expression reveals a quiet panic, a cold anxiety that ripples down your back. The laboured breaths, the clammy skin, the attempt to keep the pain inside that almost doesn't work. Just to wait until it passes, the gripping onto the carriage door. She tries her best not to let the carriage driver know that she's in pain until she cannot hold it in. She asks to stop and is helped by a village woman, and in this moment I think the fear really consumes her, and obviously rightly so. She's stuck in a place that she doesn't know. It's a place that has been absolutely ransacked by famine and poverty. She's terrified, she's scared, she's helpless, she's in pain, and she doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know what's going to happen, if it's going to end up a catastrophic thing. She knows she's losing her baby, but she doesn't know how it's going to affect her. I found this moment very honest and raw, and I find it is the most impactful scene in the show for me. And I loved especially the moment where she is guided through this experience by a lady who lives in Clonboo, who you later find on who's also buried her own children because of the poverty that they've experienced. Later on you see Anne drinking a tonic, something which she requests often, to help her continue pain throughout the series after the miscarriage. And actually this is an interesting historical note. This would likely be laudanum, an opiate-based tonic that was used like a cure-all. Painkiller, coughs, colds, insomnia, you name it. Highly addictive. And that explains her need to have it so often. And also why she has it in the first place, because she is also shown with a cane which later appears And her fragility is also highlighted in the way that her brothers help her down the stairs. She's likely suffering due to pain as a result of a chronic illness, and something that could have been working against the painkillers despite their potency. Fallout Season 2 is another one that came out. We return to the Fallout universe, and it has been gory and dramatic. This is in a less gothic, more apocalyptic style, of course. New Vegas looks like how I feel in the casinos in Vegas. Lucy's drug escapade, that was a unique way of showing her character split. Of course, we have her dad, who talks about how much the surface can change you and make you a different person. She's so adamant that she is not going to change at the beginning of Fallout. However, she has been altered by her surroundings, something she's desperately tried to avoid. She wants to be nice all the time and expects the good, but this season she's learned that this is not something that's guaranteed. She kills, she gets addicted, almost like the first time a friend tries alcohol and gets drunk, goes clubbing, and is so excited to be rebellious that they just overdo it a little bit. You know. It's bittersweet to watch. And she's an endearing character, and she tries so hard to be good, but she just slips and makes that mistake that sets her up for those next episodes. Of course, she has the cure-all, so she does recover from her addiction. It's a very short-lived one, and she decides that is not for her. But I do think it was a very interesting way to show how she's sort of changing whilst being on the surface. She kills, she gets addicted and recovers, and she's untrusting of people now. Like, she's starting to see that, like, the world doesn't work how she's been told, and it's not perfect. Her environment and the things that have happened to her have shaped her. Whether she likes it or not, that is what happens. Like, the things that happen to you do change you, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Although, of course, you know, getting addicted to things like drugs is not ideal. But the fact that she's second-guessing things is keeping her safe, you know? And I think she's starting to realise that. That leads me on to the next scene, which I really liked this season. The moment between Maximus and Thaddeus, where they've taken the cold fusion technology and they're sat in the sand and they're not doing great. Potentially they've ruined everything, potentially they might die. But they have this chat that's deeper than the previous ones, when Maximus mentions how Lucy is a good person. And Thaddeus makes a great point. See, Maximus has Lucy on this high pedestal of, oh, she's better than all of us. She knows she is good. She is a good person, down to the core. There is nothing bad about her. And Thaddeus makes this point. Lucy has the ability to be good because she had the riches too. Her ancestors paid for the future lineage to grow up in the vaults, to be protected from the outside, to have guaranteed physical safety and sustenance. Poor people didn't get to have this. She has safety, she has community, she has food and education. People outside didn't get that. They were forced to suffer the consequences of the rich right from the moment the bomb went off. They had to learn to live in the radiation. They had to learn to live with starvation. They had to learn and fight to survive on the surface. They had to adapt to how the surface now existed. Maximus asks how Thaddeus grew up, and he reveals the true poverty he experienced, which explains how he survives after their initial separation. He knows how to beg and steal and fight. Not because he's a bad person, but because if he didn't do that as a child, and if he didn't continue to do it, he would have died. This was a crucial moment in exploring the class divide in Fallout, and I love the slice of politics within the story. He did also watch a few other series that were a bit more short, shall we say. shorter series. We finished Emily in Paris season 5. It was okay. It wasn't as capturing as the other series. I think the whole chasing romance around has gotten a little bit old, and it's definitely gone on for a longer time. It felt like a filler episode, this series. It didn't have the same impact as it did before. I still enjoyed it, and it is a very nice, light-hearted series to watch, and it's fun to watch her explore the city, and it's fun to watch them do the little projects, but the romance aspect is failing a little bit. We watched Steel. That was a good one. That one's, if you like crime and you want the crime to be dramatic, watch Steel. It was very unexpected how they revealed how the whole heist worked, and I liked the main character. So basically, you have these two characters and they work for this pensions bank, and the office gets raided and they're held at gunpoint, and they have to reveal all this information and stuff so that they can take this money. Find out that there's more to it than just that, and actually some people in the building are involved. People start cracking. People start getting very, very naughty. I was not impressed by the betrayal. Blue Lights. We watched season 1 of Blue Lights. The ending was sad. And the part where, so this season starts off with, you've got a lot of new members of the police force, and it's set in Belfast. And the new people are a mix of, so there's an older woman who used to be a social worker, and then there's people who are younger who are joining. This is their first career. And then obviously you've got people who've been there for years. So you've got a mix of people. And there's this whole sort of weird unknown reason as to why there's a bunch of areas and people who have been labelled as no go, don't speak to them, don't go to these areas. And obviously people start to wonder why, because you would think that if there was an area that was out of bounds, you'd know a little bit what of the reason why, don't go here, someone else is investigating this, don't talk to these people, it's being worked on by someone higher than us. Because otherwise you're rightly going to assume, someone in the police force is clearly working with these drug dealers, because why else would we not be getting involved? So it's to do with that, and obviously it escalates until the final episode. But yeah, the ending was so sad, especially when the lady had to face these people who had ultimately killed her husband, and she had to stand there and check them into the prison. It was so sad, but I really enjoyed it. Actually, I liked it. I think I liked the aspect of the new lady who was a social worker, because I think she gives a lot of a different aspect to the role. She sees things differently and she goes about things differently than the officers would. Like when she's talking to the mum of a boy who's been roped into doing drug deals, the mum is outside with a knife because she's panicking and stuff and something has happened, and she talks her down and she gets her to put the knives down, she hugs her, and she was really good at that. So that was really good. Another thing that I watched on my own was Haunted Hotel. Now this is a animated series that's just a very short one, and it's literally what it says on the tin. This family have inherited a hotel. So the mum's brother has recently died, and they take over his hotel that he was sort of running, and then they discover that he's actually a ghost. And not only is he a ghost, but there's also ghosts in the hotel. It's great. Love it. It's an amazing background piece if you just want something that you don't have to focus on the plot line. It's fun. It's a good wind down series as well. Great characters. I really loved it. Another thing that we watched is some Christmas films for Christmas. So we bought British film to California. We watched Your Christmas or Mine, which is one of the best British modern Christmas films. I love it because it's cute, it's silly. It has a recognisable setting, even with the like rich kid background of the character, which is a little bit fictitious. I think it's probably one of our films that we will end up watching each year. The other film that we watched was This Christmas, which is amazing too, and is also adding to our family Christmas watches. So it's about this guy who decides to have a Christmas party with everyone he sees on his train to work. It's, again, capturing modern England, but keeping that classic Christmas whimsy. It reminded me of what I call like the Tesco's romance novels, which is the British romance paperbacks that have the cute covers and the light-hearted drama with the resolution, with the like meal deal, train ride, dog walking kind of world building. So I was introduced to these when I returned to reading in 2020, and I would go to Tesco's to get my food bits because I'm lactose intolerant, so there's things that I needed to buy that wouldn't be in the house. And I was getting back into reading, so I would venture into like the Tesco's sort of section with all the books just to see what was there, and it had like a very clear market, which now that I think about it is probably Mum's. I'm not gonna lie. Crime, biography, romance, recipe books. Not really lit fic or manga in the Tesco's book aisle because it has a niche market, which is, you know, the average shopper that they have. And that's my association with these books, and that's why I call them up, because it's such like a, if I need a pick-me-up book, that is where I go. That is what I think of when I need a little pick-me-up book that's like still got that gripping and great plot line, but is a little bit whimsical, homely, and happy. My final media piece is Dan and Phil's new podcast, so I've been watching that, and I love it. It's so, like, it's something that I look forward to watching on a Monday, and it's really nice to see them interacting and being able to really, like, display their personalities in a way that they couldn't before. It's called Hard Launch. If you didn't know, they hard launched their relationship and explain the reasonings why they haven't done it until now. And I think that you can really see their individual personalities blossom more now that they have decided to share this and had the autonomy to do so. I think that is the key point. And this new like era is so, I love it. I love it. It's nice. It's just nice to watch something that's simultaneously new but also like feels very like nostalgic as well. And I think they're very good creative powerhouses, and they're very in tune with what they want to make in their branding, but also it's personal, and they're very conscious of their style and what they're putting out. And I think that their passion for that really transcends and shows in this new podcast. And I think that you can tell that they're enjoying it, and I enjoy listening to it as well. January always feels very sluggish, I think. It's in juxtaposition with adult life, though, because whilst it feels slow, it also feels very quick. I think my highlights of this month were definitely completing 2 national parks of our goal of visiting all 9 in California. Another highlight that I have is that I've done some more sketching. I tried dirty soda for the first time, which is a fizzy drink mixed with milk, non-dairy for me, a different syrup, and lots of different syrup flavours. I tried this in Utah, which is probably the most popular drink there. It's Mormon friendly, of course, which is, I think, the reason for its creation. It's fun. It's like, it was nice to have a novelty drink that isn't like trying to be alcohol. Does that make sense? We actually tried an at-home version when we got back with Dr. Pepper, coconut creamer, and pineapple juice. That was nice. I think the one that I tried in Utah was strawberry. My final win for January is that I made a lot more content, and not just videos, I also made some digital collages, and I've been really enjoying making digital collages. I'm hoping that the coming months are better. It's getting sunny again, you know, the flowers are growing. I've been getting more into creating things, and I'm hoping that this is a theme that reflects outwards. Here's to February, and thank you for listening or watching, if you are watching the video, and see you next month when we have another little wrap up in dinner time.